Hello, welcome to Cheyenne's Forum. Today is June 4th, and I'm so glad to see our dear friend Tom. Hello, Tom.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, Tom works as a FBI agent for 30 years, and he was an assistant of the director of FBI for 5 years. So I really appreciate you spend your time and then talk to us about the situation right now. It's very serious. So today's topic is only one about Trump, his New York case. Our audience really want to hear from you, and even one of my audience just sent a text yesterday to me said, "Can I know that what Tom think about that? I really want to know that Tom, how Tom will explain or will reading this whole situation about New York, about Trump, about American right now."
Well, not just from my opinion, but if you look at some of the legal scholars
Hmm.
that have been interviewed on various cable channels, and I have a lot of respect for a couple of them, especially the Democrats. One of them would be Alan Dershowitz, professor emeritus from Harvard, taught at Harvard Law School 30, 40 years, constitutional expert. And he has said flat out he doesn't support Trump. He's
Hmm.
not a Trump guy. He didn't vote for Trump. Both elections, he did not vote for him. But he would like the opportunity through fairness in the system to vote against Trump yet again. So
Right.
he's basically saying that this lawfare, the use of the criminal justice system to try to keep Trump from being able to be on the ballot or from being able to win or to set these trials up so that he's going to lose and they can call him a convicted felon, at the time of the election. He thinks this is terrible. This is a terrible misuse of the criminal justice system.
Hmm.
Another one is Jonathan Turley. He's a professor at George Washington University here in Washington, D.C. And he says the same basic thing that the system was badly abused almost from the beginning in this. You have a case, the legal definitions, let's say,
Hmm.
that were altered so that federal misdemeanors that were beyond the statute of limitations could suddenly be prosecuted as felonies in state court.
Hmm.
And they bring down an Obama official, number three at the Department of Justice, Coangelo, to help Bragg, the prosecutor in New York, prosecute Trump. And
Hmm.
so, and it was clear that whether you're talking about Alvin Bragg or Letitia James, the attorney general, or the officials in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, they all basically said the same thing a couple of years ago. We're
Hmm.
going to convict Trump. That was their whole goal. We don't know what he did. We'll figure it out, but we're going to find him guilty. And we've never had that kind of targeting of someone to be a defendant and then the alteration of the laws to go after them. Now, at the
Hmm.
time, from the time I've been a young FBI agent in the 70s and a police officer before that, we were taught one of the constitutional theories was called ex post facto law. And that meant that you can't change the law today to find somebody that's guilty of something years ago that at the time wasn't illegal or wasn't a violation. Let's make it a violation today and charge them with them and convict them. Now, I
Right.
think it's one of the principles I've not heard mentioned in all of this, but that almost seems like what they've done because on the federal cases, the election fraud and the hush money, all the things that they're talking about federally, the statute of limitations had already expired.
Hmm.
They pass a law in New York, state local law, saying, well, never mind that. We're going to extend it. We're going to
Right.
say that doesn't apply. Well, that's changing the law to
Hmm.
fit a current circumstance against a defendant that at the time shouldn't have been charged.
Hmm.
That's one of the things. And you have these legal scholars pointing out other issues of the unconstitutionality of you have basically, our system is called federalism. And what
Hmm.
that means is you have the federal government, and many of the things that are illegal in the federal government are illegal or not illegal in the state government system, state laws in the 50 states.
Mhm.
Now, the thing about that is that you can't, you can have a state law declared unconstitutional, or under the supremacy clause that federal law supersedes state law. And
Mhm.
therefore, in this case, election violations are under federal law, and they just threw that away. Said, well, we don't care. We're going to
Mhm.
prosecute under state authority. And so basically, it's a reverse federalism. We're going to
Mhm.
make state violations suddenly become federal. Now,
Right.
under that philosophy, you have thousands of state and local prosecutors all over the country, and all of them now could say, well, this was not a violation in our state, but we're going to charge a federal violation, so it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And that's basically a reverse federalism that should not apply. There are so many issues that the appellate courts and the Supreme Courts can hear now about this case,
Mhm.
that who knows how long it will take them. Now, some of the scholars on TV, such as Mark Levin, has
Mhm.
said that he thinks that the Republicans can go ahead and try to push this immediately into Supreme Court
Right.
on the
Right.
basis of it's an emergency because it's interfering with the election.
Right.
Isn't if it isn't at least studied by the Supreme Court and allowed to happen or not allowed to happen, we don't know. But it should be the U.S. Supreme Court that makes the final decision,
Right.
much like in George Bush versus Al Gore
Mhm.
in 2000. Now, in
Mhm.
that case, you had a situation where they said, if we don't get these issues of the voting methodology that was taking place in Florida, if we don't get this in front of the Supreme Court, who cares if 5 years from now they find out that Bush was right or Gore was right? And,
Mhm.
and they can't overturn an election then. They
Right.
can't go back and make up for it,
Mhm.
but they can prevent a misjustice from happening now. If they
Mhm.
make the ruling now, that can be it. And
Mhm.
that's what uh, Mark Levin is recommending in this case, that the
Right.
Republicans need to get their lawyers together and within the next week or
Mhm.
two at the most, get a petition, a writ to the Supreme Court
Mhm.
requesting that because of the importance of this case
Sure.
and under the due process clause, argue that New York state system, particularly Manhattan District Attorney's Office, should
Mhm.
not be in a position of
Mhm.
dictating election law for all
Right.
the states in the union.
Right.
Should
Right.
not be their power to do that. And
Mhm.
therefore, this is something of such importance, and,
Right.
and the consequences are so huge that the
Mhm.
Supreme Court should really look at this right now. And what
Mhm.
they should do is stay the opinion of Judge Merchan in Manhattan. In other words, don't issue the sentencing on July 11th to Trump.
Mhm.
Just hold that in abeyance. That's called a stay in
Mhm.
legal system. So stay that decision. Just hold a decision and
Mhm.
let the Supreme Court look at this and a number of constitutional issues
Mhm.
um, that have gone before the Supreme Court in the last couple of months. Give
Mhm.
the Supreme Court a chance to rule on these, which may make it, may overthrow the decision in Manhattan, the
Mhm.
jury's decision,
Sure.
or change the rules, or say the rules weren't followed by Alvin Bragg's office, the Manhattan District Attorney.
Mhm.
Raise all of these issues, but they're so important and they're so consequential to the rest of the country, to
Right.
all the voters. Now,
Mhm.
the due process clause passed with the 14th Amendment in 1868.
Mhm.
What it basically says is that the Bill of Rights and all of these other laws need to apply to everybody,
Mhm.
and therefore that's due process. And
Mhm.
if this decision in New York is not eliminated by the Supreme Court or overruled by the Supreme Court or any of the other appellate courts, if
Mhm.
it isn't overruled, it's denying
Mhm.
voters throughout the country of due process, of
Mhm.
the chance to have a fair election with
Right.
either for or against Donald Trump. It doesn't matter, but it's affecting the fairness of the decision. So how
Sure.
you vote, how I vote, how our other friends and relatives vote throughout the country is affected by this jury's decision
Mhm.
in Manhattan, New York,
Definitely.
and that it's too important a decision to rest with them. It's too
Right.
consequential to allow that to stand.
Right, right. I personally agree with Levin with this reasonable, I think it's reasonable solution. And if that's the case, it's all depends on the Supreme Court if they take the case or not.
Exactly, exactly. And he's basically saying, they may not take the case, or they
Yeah,
may say go through the normal appeal process, which means there'll be no final decision for a couple of years. So they may say that. But at least if you don't try, you're not going to know. It certainly, so far, the Supreme Court has shown that it will not step in just because it thinks the trial wasn't run correctly, or the judge shouldn't have been selected that way, or the statute of limitations should not have been altered to allow no time limit to bring these charges. All of those issues are just so important that they affect the whole country. They affect every voter in the country.
exactly. I agree with you. And then I think if they don't want to take the case, that is just excuse, which cannot convince me. It's not about the judge. It's not about the prosecutor. It's not about the jury. It's about the country. It's about the election.
Yeah, right.
So hopefully the Republic can do things just like you said within 1 or 2 weeks. It's an emergency.
It's an
So
emergency, and some of the legal scholars are basically saying that Trump should go ahead and fire his current attorneys and bring in a new legal team and push this immediately. Now,
right.
now what Trump does in the days ahead, we will see. But the argument, and again, these are legal scholars saying this; these aren't political operatives.
Right,
Uh,
right,
you
right.
have you have lawyers that are Democrats
Hmm.
saying this is what ought to happen. This
Right.
this review should take place one way or the other. Have a decision of the Supreme Court either deciding how to rule in the case or deciding they're not going to touch it. But at
Right,
least they tried.
right, right. Because I saw President Trump tweet or on his Truth Social that the Supreme Court should step in the trial. It's so important. But it's just like he's saying something. We need the legal processing. And I'm so glad that Levin gave a path to the Supreme Court about this special case. And we'll see, just like you said, we'll see what's the Republic going to do and what's the Supreme going to do. So
Right.
this
And many legal decisions require a precedent. In other words, not president as in the man, but precedent as what were the earlier decisions that are similar to this case. And
Mhm.
so he's citing that the biggest case that we've had in the last 25 years ago was 2000
It's
Gore versus, and I don't remember if it was Gore versus Bush or Bush versus Gore, but in that case, the Supreme Court basically weighed in and
right.
said, okay, stop counting in this county or that county in Florida.
Mhm.
Let this decision stand.
Mhm.
Um, the decisions that the Supreme Court made basically ruled George Bush as president of the United States.
Right,
And
right.
so that decision stood, but it's an example or a precedent of
Mhm.
the Supreme Court saying, okay, they've petitioned us to step in, we're going to step in.
Mhm. Well, so the whole New York case is just like a big show that shows everybody that how corrupt they are and how they don't care about the system. They don't care about the law. And the only purpose is just take down Trump, whatever it takes. And so the one thing is people think, how can we get back? The one path is just like you just said that we can file to the Supreme Court. And if Supreme Court don't take the case, or if they did not choose this way, what's the other way to deal with the situation and to keep the Trump's president election?
But I think, that's the main choices right now. It's in the legal system. It has to be within the legal system that it's decided. It's
Mhm.
not decided by violence or the threat of violence,
Mhm.
or people, withdrawing from the being states in the United States or any of that type of thing. I think, we for over 250 years have relied on our legal system to
Mm-hmm.
basically save us in times like this,
Mm-hmm.
and basically set the standards for when the various courts rule at the appellate and Supreme Court level,
Mm-hmm.
and how our federal system works and who can prosecute and what the rules are in these investigations and in the actual prosecutions. And I think that, we're in a situation where we're going to have to go along with it, whether we like it or not. So if the Supreme Court says we're not taking the case and let it, as they did when Jack Smith, the prosecutor in the Florida documents case, when he
Mm-hmm.
tried to get the Supreme Court to move up their schedule and take parts of his appeals, and they said, no, 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 go back to your local court and bring it up in the normal manner. It
Mm-hmm.
gets appealed to your court, then the next level, then the next level, and then the final say would be U.S. Supreme Court. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this goes back kind of what I talked about, how many times, in the last month or two, that the Democrats were the ones that decided to wait till the last minute because
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to interfere with the election.
Right.
So from my point of view, I think that, and I'm not the legal scholar like Levin or Jonathan Turley or Dershowitz, but my point of view is that they delayed prosecution on purpose to
Mm-hmm.
interfere with the election in November, to make it so close that
Mm-hmm.
it interferes, that whatever decision happens, there's
Mm-hmm.
too little time between the decision and the election in November to have it reviewed at the appellate level or senior levels in the state or by the Supreme Court. So
Mm-hmm.
they've set this thing up, and in a way, it's up till now, it's mostly hurt the Democrats, especially in the documents case in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
because in that case, they had to know that it was not mostly settled law, that the president has the right to
Mm-hmm.
his documents and those papers. When he declassifies them, he gets to take those documents and use them how he sees fit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that case, they waited till the last minute to prosecute Trump for that. And now they're not going to get these final, you have Judge Aileen Cannon in Florida basically issuing rulings that, okay, this motion has to be decided first, and then this motion has to be decided next. And she has basically set a timeline that it's going to be just about impossible for Jack Smith to prosecute before November.
Right.
So
Right.
that hurt. They could have brought this case earlier. They didn't. They wanted the maximum impact, and they
Mm-hmm.
should have had enough common sense or legal experience to know that there's many issues of unsettled law that the appellate or Supreme Court would have to rule on to go to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Rules of evidence concerning an ex-president, rules of the president having the ability to declassify any item he wants, document, tape recording, movie, whatever it might be, and then take possession of them for his purposes. So he could write a book, or he could, argue or bring lawsuits later against people. Now, in
Mm-hmm.
this case, similarly, you have Joe Biden, the special prosecutor, her
Mm-hmm.
ruling that Biden violated the
Right.
law. He violated the Espionage Act, but he's too stupid to prosecute. His memory isn't any good anymore. He's an imbecile, so we're going to not prosecute. What? Excuse me. He gets a pass because he's not smart anymore, or because he's made these decisions. And the thing about that is that Biden wanted those documents that he took, and he has referred to them, and he told her and the interviewers that he got a contract to write a book, $8 million, and he wanted access to those documents that were classified to share classified information with the author, who did not have security clearances. So Biden had no business to possess those documents, to take them out of the government system at his
Mm-hmm.
own discretion, and to do it to make money. And so many things in Biden, if you look at the character of Joe Biden, how many times does it come up? He's just trying to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Hunter Biden was, basically a useful idiot for him, because he helped Joe Biden get rich.
Right, right. It's like a family business.
It's a crime family.
Right, right. So I watched the interview that Trump gave yesterday, and he said he's ready to go to the jail. He said, I have no problem to go to the jail. So if that's happened, um, like the Supreme Court did not take the case, and then the judge sentenced Trump at July 11th, and Trump go to the jail. So what's going to happen next?
Well, there's a lot of arguments that he won't go to jail, that the system, it would be never happened before, all of
Mhm.
that. But so many aspects of this case never happened before. So
Right,
you can't put it past Alvin Bragg
right,
to sentence him to jail.
right. I agree.
And you have other Democrats right now, ironically, even in New York,
Mhm.
telling the governor Hochul of New York, pardon Trump. Take
Oh,
this off so that he doesn't go to jail, so that this is done,
mhm,
because it's going to hurt the Democrats more than it hurts Trump. So we'll
mhm,
see. The other issue, that they don't talk about with that, and I think one of the reasons Trump made that statement is
mhm,
because you have all of these Democrats, media people, MSNBC and CNN and others, they're putting their people on that hate Trump, and they're
mhm,
basically saying Trump's a tyrant, he's a dictator, he's not going to follow the law. They parade Robert De Niro, famous actor,
mhm,
to go on the cameras last week, I think, or the week before, basically saying Trump will take over the White House. He'll never leave. He won't follow the law. He's a dictator. He's a Nazi. He's Hitler. He's all of these things. So by Trump saying, yeah, I'll go to jail, he's basically saying, I'm not going to defy. If there's a legal decision saying
mhm,
I need to go to jail, I'll go to jail.
mhm, mhm,
So it's taking away the argument that he's going to do whatever he wants and not follow the law or
mhm,
follow the sentence that the judge may give him.
mhm,
He's going to do what he wants. And
mhm.
first of all, he's already been president 4 years. He didn't do that the first time. Why would he do it now?
Right, that's the thing.
And the first time, when he loses to Joe Biden and Biden
Right.
is declared the winner, he
He left
leaves.
the White House. Yeah,
I'll
right,
call up the movers, bring the trucks, get my
right,
stuff. I'm going
right.
back to Florida. And he
Mhm,
leaves. There's
mhm,
no violence, there's no threat. He
right.
doesn't call out militia groups, protect me, I'm going to stay in the White House.
Mhm,
He didn't turn the White House into the Alamo, that
mhm.
we're going to stay here with guns and you come take us out with your guns.
They
None of
didn't.
that.
Yeah.
Packed up and they left.
Mhm,
So for Democrats or movie stars or anchors on the various liberal networks to
mhm,
say Trump's a dictator and this is how he's going to handle this
mhm,
if he gets sentenced to jail,
mhm,
then there's no example of Trump ever having done that.
mhm,
So now
mhm,
by Trump publicly saying, "You put me in jail, I'll go to jail.
mhm,
Whatever you tell me I have to do, I'll do it."
mhm,
Well, what kind of argument is that he's going to be a dictator
mhm,
or he's going to, be a tyrant? He's going to stay in office. You're going to
mhm,
have to send the army in to get him out. No,
mhm.
he's showing that that's not the case.
So you mean probably he will not need to go to the jail because right now and then for next month we have whole month. So something gonna happen during this month. So
Yeah,
Trump.
if he thought, I think the Democrats, if they thought that he would resist going to jail, then sentence him to jail. Show that he's not going to follow the law. Show that
Mhm,
he's going to do what he wants. That he thinks that the old argument, no one's above the law. Make
mhm,
him show that he's above. He thinks he's above the law.
mhm,
But when he says, "Yeah, you sentence me to jail, I'll go to jail," well, that's
mhm,
going to backfire. The Democrats know, we don't want that.
mhm,
That'll make him even more of a martyr, more
mhm,
of a hero. It'll
mhm,
show us even more willing to sentence him to jail on
mhm,
charges that aren't jail charges.
mhm,
Just small, low-level white-collar crime, and
mhm,
he has no
right,
criminal record. There is no basis for Trump going to jail.
mhm,
He's not a serial killer or a serial offender or all of those type of things.
Hmm.
So the argument, if they actually put him in jail, it would backfire, blow up in their face, I think.
Right,
And they know that.
right, right. And then yesterday I saw that one of the Democrats congressman has a revolution that they want took off Trump's um security protection on if he's in the jail. So this is a big thing, but I don't know if the bill will pass or not. Mostly it won't pass, but if he's in the jail, so lots of people is worried about they're gonna kill him, they're gonna assassinate him. And for the New York court, for the New York judge, it already assassinated him politically. And now, if they cannot assassinate him, cannot stop him, we see so many people are supporting Trump, and more people supporting Trump right now. And they, like you said, they just panic. They're scared. So, is it possible that they will do something to Trump physically in the prison? That's the lots of people worry about this.
I think right now you have so many officials in the government, but particularly Democratic Party,
Mhm.
that think that Trump is such a threat to them because so many people support him. And depending how they handle this, that many of them say we'll do anything to keep him from being president again. But
Mhm.
what is the answer to anything? They tried to keep him off the ballot. The Supreme Court took that, say he's on the ballot in
Mhm.
every state. They've
Mhm.
tried to now prosecute him on all these 91 counts, and
Mhm.
many of those are falling apart. The Fannie
Mhm.
Willis case in Georgia,
Mhm.
falling apart. The documents case in Florida, Jack Smith's case, um, much of that is falling apart.
Right.
And the timing of it is they won't get that into court before election anyway, most likely. So many of the strategies to get him, and
Mhm.
they're throwing everything they can, hoping something sticks. And
Mhm.
so far, nothing's really sticking that
Mhm.
matters. And
Mhm.
so I think that they're looking at this going, what is the one thing that could happen that absolutely guarantees Trump will not be president?
Yeah.
It's
Everybody.
terrible. I don't even want to say it out loud.
Right. Right.
And the fact that people are thinking about that and almost saying it out loud,
Mhm.
that Trump will not be in a position to take the oath of office next January.
Mhm.
He won't be in a position to get voted into office in November.
Mhm.
So now, what does that leave them?
Right. Right. So this is really something scared me.
It's very scary.
Right. Right. Wow. I don't know what to say.
Well, there's not much we can say because there's so
Right.
many possibilities
Right.
that we cannot predict.
Right.
And much of the possibilities, or many of the possibilities, rely on, in the immediate run, what is the Supreme Court going to do
Right.
between now and July 11th
Mhm.
to take away the possibility that Judge Merchan tries to put Trump in jail? So
Mhm.
that's number one.
Right.
And after that, what are all the other choices? If Trump doesn't go to jail, and if they say, or Merchan could sentence him to probation or something. It's not;
Right.
these are not violent crimes, and he's a first-time offender.
Mhm.
So normally, this would be non-jail that he would be sentenced to, but
It's
you
not
don't know with them. They're so vicious that they might put him in jail.
right.
But let's say they don't put him in jail, and Trump is still free. Right now he's still under the gag order by Merchan. He's
Right.
still under the control of Judge Merchan in
Mhm.
this case. So
Mhm.
he is not technically free to
Right.
hold rallies everywhere he wants or do all the things that he would like to do in terms of campaigning. So that's all a possibility. But if Trump is still free enough to campaign, then we'll see if the Democrats have to run against him in November. And now you have the upcoming debate. with Biden. Is that going to happen? Most people say Biden can't possibly do it. Or I like the latest thing. There are so many rumors that when Biden gave the State of the Union, when Biden makes public appearances, he's on drugs, that they're pumping him full of amphetamines and different drugs to get him all energetic, which makes him also mean and vicious, but at least to give him the energy to stay awake and give a speech for an hour or two. And, so now if he's going to debate, you have Trump saying, one of the rules should be we both have to take drug tests.
Right.
Well, can you imagine? Biden's not going to take a drug test. Most medical people looking at him say, no, he can't pass a drug test.
So there is one suggestion for the Republic is right now they schedule the conference at July 14th or 15th. It's 3 or 4 days after the sentence day. The sentence is July 11th. So some people suggest, and I actually thought about that, why we move the conference date early than July 11th. So on July 11th, they sentence Trump. Trump is already official 2020 Republic presidential candidates. So does that make difference?
Problem with that is that, the logistical problems with arranging for thousands of people to go to the city, to have flights to get to the city, to have hotel rooms when they get there, to have the auditoriums and everything set up for them during that 4 or 5 days that they're in town to hold a convention. Moving it back would always be a possible, but they've already signed contracts for all of the logistics, the hotels and requirements that they have. That takes a lot of advanced planning and work to get that set up. It takes a lot of advanced planning on the part of law enforcement and the security agencies to guarantee the safety of the people that are going to attend, their safety in the hotels that they're staying in the transportation to the venue, to the situation when they're in. Much of this is similar to when I was in high school in 1968, the Democratic Convention in Chicago in 68, and everything that happened there, the amount of violence that went on, and that a lot of people feel that what happened in Chicago, the violence and the chaos and all of that enabled Richard Nixon to win the election. And so that's what they're looking at here is, are they really in a position to make those kind of changes, either delaying it or moving up when they have all these contracts and all of these things in place?
Yes, so I understand that part. It must be very difficult or nearly impossible to do so. But my concern is July 11th. That's the day that the judge will sentence Trump. If Trump is not officially become the candidates, he is the president, the president. But if the Republic already officially give him the candidates, it will make difference to the judge, right?
Well, the difference is that this convention, Trump holds these rallies, and tens of thousands of people come to each of the venues. And he gets a lot of attention in each state where he does it.
Right.
When he's at the rally, whatever state he's in, that's why he gets to introduce in that state and to the people at the rally, their Congress people, their senators, their, everybody but the dog catcher gets introduced to the audience. And so it's a giant campaign event in that state. It's a more localized event for that state. Much of it's on national television, on internet, or, some of the networks. But in the case of the convention, that is their biggest, they refer to that as the parties get a convention bounce because of all the publicity, because of all of the people across country hearing the speeches, watching the event and all of that, that when the event's over and they've nominated the president candidate, the vice presidential candidate, and they give their speeches at the convention, that they get a huge bounce, so many points up in the polls
Right.
in the aftermath of that convention. So
Mm-hmm.
if they want to move that and do it on Zoom or cancel it altogether or anything, it denies the candidate, denies their own party the opportunity to have this gigantic national, international campaign event that the whole country will see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why they would be very reluctant to do that.
Sure, sure. And also if the judge will put Trump in jail at
Here's
June.
if I could interrupt you, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
We're talking about inconveniencing tens of thousands of people
Mm-hmm.
because the judge out of the blue picks July 11th.
Right.
What? So 50,000 people are going to be inconvenienced. Hundreds of businesses will lose money,
Mm-hmm.
airlines, hotels, restaurants, you name it, because the judge out of the blue decided, I think July 11th, that's a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the person that should change the date.
Let's hope so. And that's the best solution. So the other situation is if a judge put Trump into the jail in July 11th. So on the conference, Republic conference, Trump cannot be there.
Right.
Is that what they want?
Maybe. But who will get hurt the most if that judge decides to do that? I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of party officials are already talking to this judge saying, hey, don't be stupid. Do not put Trump in jail and make him a martyr. How much, we have seen for the last couple of months how much of an idiot you are, how biased you are, how one sided, how unfair, how unconstitutional. And now you're going to do this one more step to show that you're not fair, to show this injustice against one person, Donald Trump,
Mhm.
and all of the people that want to vote for Donald Trump, not just Donald Trump. How many millions across the country are going to vote for Trump?
Mhm.
And you're gonna basically do a policy that's going to affect them. And again, that goes back to that's part of the due process clause of the 14th Amendment.
Mhm.
So passed in 1868 to basically say all of the rights and privileges granted in the Bill of Rights at the federal level apply to every citizen at every level. And that includes voters.
Mhm. Mhm. You know what, Tom? I think we are all too kind. We're thinking about the law. We're thinking about law and order and the rules. Seems to me they don't care. Do you see in which part they care about law? The whole processing from the start to up to date. Are they care about the law? No, they don't.
No, they're using whatever they can in the law to
Mhm.
basically they call it lawfare instead
Yeah,
of warfare.
yeah,
So they're using the law to punish people they don't like or they
right,
don't agree with or they don't want to have run against them or be on the ballot or any of that.
right.
So what they're doing is unfair and illegal at every level.
Yeah. And that's the thing that almost everybody now realize what's going on here. It's not only here in the States. I saw people get together at London. About thousands of people get together in London and said Trump, 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 as Trump supporter. And then they said that Trump is the hope, right, for save the Western civilization. These are the people who support Trump after the New York case, and also people from Switzerland. And you see, they do the same thing. So it's not only the American issue, this is the world issue.
Yeah.
Also, when people see the lawless New York judge can do whatever they want, what they going to think about American?
I'll give you an example of that when George W. Bush,
Mm-hmm.
he gets elected, and then, within a year, you have 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the Patriot Act. They have all of this where the U.S. is basically the war on terror.
Right.
And what happens initially,
Mm-hmm.
everybody supports the war on terror. Everybody supports the new measures.
Oh,
We'd,
yeah.
we'd rather have the FBI and the NSA spy on us if that's going to help us be safe. Let them
Mm-hmm.
do it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
by the end of the first term, George W. Bush's first term, a couple things happened. And politically, he stops paying as much attention to Dick Cheney. He realizes that Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and a few of these neocons
Mm-hmm.
have basically tricked him into becoming more authoritarian. And much of that being directed at US citizens, not just foreigners. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm getting at is that I traveled a lot in that job, in the job I had at the time.
Sure.
And so I'm traveling I go to Germany and I'm meeting with officials in Germany right after Bush gets reelected for his
Mm-hmm.
second term.
Mm-hmm.
And people are wearing not just in the U.S. embassy, but foreigners,
Mm-hmm.
Germans, and other foreign
Right.
officials are wearing black armbands. And I'm talking to them. I said, you're not even a U.S. citizen.
Why? Yeah.
And here's their answer. And I heard this over and over in country after country. He's our president too. These are
Well,
non-Americans saying the president of the United States, because of the power of the US, because of our control of NATO and
mm-hmm.
dominance of EU and all of these other treaty agreements, that if you're a citizen of another country, the president of the United States has a big effect on your life. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, they would tell me flat out, he's our president too. Not just yours, not just Americans, he's ours too. And so that's part of the issue that comes up with this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, later you have that issue come up again that the president can wield so much power internationally. And we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing that now. We're seeing even a weak president like Biden,
Mm-hmm.
the US is still dominating the EU
Mm-hmm.
and NATO.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're so weak, we still have more power than those countries.
Right, right. So it's understandable what happened in Europe right now. People support Trump. And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, I actually saw I think it's today's hearing about Garland. Garland is keep lying in front of the Congress, and yesterday the hearing is falsy. They are just keep lying. So what can we do to these
Well,
guys?
Garland, under our system, Garland, a liar to Congress can only be prosecuted by the Department of Justice,
By this
by Garland.
government?
So that's why he gets away with it, that Mayorkas gets away with the
Right,
lying,
right.
Biden, Harris, all of the officials in the administration
Mm-hmm.
lie through their teeth. They lied all through the pandemic, still
Mm-hmm.
lie about it. You look at Fauci's testimony.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember watching Fauci on TV right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I were watching him on TV, and I said, he's lying and he should
Mm-hmm.
go to jail. And I said that in 2000. He
Mm.
should go to jail.
Right, right.
And still, still getting away with this.
We'll see. We'll see. Only if Trump can come back to White House. So these
And not
guys.
only not only Trump, but he's got to put the right people in charge,
Mm-hmm.
starting with Attorney General.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one because of the discretion the Attorney General has to bring these charges
Mm-hmm.
against people that lie to Congress.
Right.
Congress makes a referral and said, this person was just a witness in in front of our committee and lied. We
Mm-hmm.
want you to do something. And then
Right.
they just, never mind, we're not going to do anything. So
Right.
you have an attorney general that's absolutely a critical position to
Mm-hmm.
rule of law,
Oh,
controls the rule of law.
sure.
And you have the various secretaries of the cabinet offices,
Mm-hmm.
very powerful positions. You have the Defense Department, Secretary of uh, Department of Defense,
Mm-hmm.
Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. You have these key peoples in the Defense Department.
Mm-hmm.
What are
Right.
they doing?
Right.
They're the ones that have created this woke military that we have now that's
Right.
very weak. And you
Right.
have people in the Senate and Jake Sullivan and Blinken that think that, oh, we've got the most powerful military in the world. Not really. Not anymore.
Yeah. So let's go back to history. I know you really like the history, study history. Do you see any similarity of the situation like today in American history? Like crap, people are angry, people are very worried about the future of the country.
Yeah, in the 1850s, leading
18,
up to the Civil War. So you have a situation there where the South, and actually the Democratic Party
mm-hmm,
controlled, was the party of slavery.
mm-hmm,
And they looked at a candidate like Abraham Lincoln. Oh, if this guy gets elected, we're in trouble. He's going to come after us. And in the South at the time, this is before, at that time, it was before nylon, rayon, polyester, and all of that. Cotton was king.
mm-hmm,
King in the US, it was king in Europe.
right.
And the Southern economy depended drastically on cotton,
Mm-hmm,
the growing of it, the harvesting of it, the preparing of it, the shipping of it, and all of that. And
mm-hmm,
therefore, to have an economical agricultural system specializing in the production of cotton,
mm-hmm,
they wanted slavery to do it. They
mm-hmm,
had slaves to plant, pick, pack, and organize the sale of cotton.
mm-hmm,
And the South looked at it like, if Lincoln gets in and these Northerners, and if these Republicans
mm-hmm,
take away slavery from us, we're going to be in big trouble.
mm-hmm,
So that's why they started, the attack on Fort Sumter was in Charleston, South Carolina in April 1861. Right after Lincoln's elected, they attacked the fort
mm-hmm,
and bomb it until the people in the fort surrender. The Union people surrender, and it becomes, no longer a Union
mm-hmm,
Northern Army fort. And that begins. Then you have states start seceding. Then you have the beginning and into the bulk of the Civil War, starting in 1861, leading up till the final surrender in April of 65.
mm-hmm,
So, we go through 4 years of killing, how many hundreds of thousands of Americans, North and South.
mm-hmm.
And it all really started with the effect of the economy on eliminating slavery and what that would do to the cotton industry in the South.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Right.
see, I see, I see those issues then of that deep division between North and South, between the economy of the South, economy of the North, the
Mm-hmm.
justice system, you name it. Um, so it was much more intense, I think. At that time, it led to the killing of hundreds of thousands
Mm-hmm.
of people, citizens as well as soldiers on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
and the destruction of so much in all of these big cities.
Right. That's a horrible history, a
Yeah.
period of time in American. Um, hopefully, um, the situation right now can go to a good direction. Like the Republic lawyers can get together to file the lawsuit on the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court step in to correct the situation. That's the best that we can hope,
Right.
right?
I think right now, yes.
Right. And then also the one thing I really curious about, what do you think? The Mexico president, they just have a new president, which is a female, which is I think she's a very left um a politician. So she becomes a new president. What do you think about that? Any effect to America, especially if Trump go back to White House?
Yeah, we're going to have to see on that. Mexico is an extremely socialist country. Their
Mm,
last president, Obrador, was also very socialist. Now, what a
mm,
lot of people don't know is that the negotiations between the Trump administration
mm.
and Obrador, Mexico's system is the president is elected for 6 years and cannot run for reelection. So one
Okay.
term, 6 years.
All right.
And the last president, Obrador, you had Bush, basically, they got along. And you heard Bush say, yeah, he's a socialist, but he's a good guy. We get along. And, you had Jared Kushner on behalf of Trump negotiating directly with Obrador on the stay in Mexico asylum policy and
Mm-hmm.
some of these other decisions. Mexico providing 28,000 troops
Right.
to keep people in Mexico from leaving Mexico and going into the United States. So you
Mm-hmm.
had all of these decisions that basically enabled Trump to keep the border secure
Sure.
during the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, when Biden comes in, he just throws all that out.
Right.
Not only, the work that Jared Kushner did in Mexico, he also throws out the work he did in the Middle East in the Abraham Accords
Right. Right.
between Israel and the neighbors. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have all of these policies that are very good for the US,
Mm-hmm.
really good.
Right.
Biden, because they were Trump policies, they had to go. We can't keep these policies because they came from Trump and he was evil. We all know Trump was evil. So nothing he did should stand. And
Mm-hmm.
that was among the policies.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, the president of Mexico, who's a socialist,
Mm-hmm.
agreeing with the US government, okay, we'll help keep these people from crossing into the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And the US basically saying you can apply for asylum in Mexico, but you will stay in Mexico
Right.
until it's decided. You
Mm-hmm.
don't get to come in and get a court date for 10 years from now and
No.
wander around the US, do what you want for 10 years until
Mm-hmm.
and then most of them aren't going to show up in court anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So basically that's what happened. Now you have you know,
Yeah.
another openly socialist. Mexico's a socialist system.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you have, the new president. We just don't know yet
We'll
how
see.
many things can be negotiated with her, what
Mm-hmm.
the new policies will be, or what.
Mm-hmm.
So, or what Biden will even try to do.
Right. That's the thing. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. We have some audience just say hi to you. Hello, Tom. Hello, Tom. Like your program, like this interview. Thank you so much for telling us the truth and high quality program. And Winter, he said, Tom, we love you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all those kind comments, and I love you back. Thank you.
They're so sweet. And then We the People Maga said, God bless you too, Patriot. Thank you so much. And Sunny said, hello, Cheyenne. Hello, Tom. They're so cute. So yeah, so today we talk about some important issue that would define who we are and where we're gonna go. So we'll see within this month, if Republic going to do something, if the Supreme Court going to do something. This is a very, very critical time of America.
This goes back to the old saying, Confucius, may you live in interesting times.
Yeah.
And I think in the next 4 or 5 months, this is going to be some of the most interesting times we've had in the US in a long time. And not just the US, worldwide,
Mm-hmm.
because so many of these situations are worldwide situations. The commentary that the Biden administration, uh, with EU support, are heading us toward World War III.
Right.
The possibility of nuclear weapons being used starting in Europe, but they
Right.
can reach here. People think, they basically think that if there's a nuclear war, it'll be very limited and it'll only be in Europe. And so, well, that's not a big deal if Warsaw, Paris, London are eliminated off the map. No problem. That's not a big deal. And the second, and US people still rely on the false idea that the oceans will protect us. It's like in the old days, you had the castle and then
Mm-hmm.
you had the moat around the castle, keep
You're
the enemy out. Well,
right.
our moat is the Atlantic Ocean and the
And-
Pacific Ocean, except not anymore. Russian submarines can be sitting 5 minutes off the coast on Atlantic or Pacific side without us even knowing they're there. The
Mm-hmm.
modern stealth,
Mm-hmm.
like the hunt for Red October. Well, there are dozens of those submarines on both sides, and they're sitting off, you know, you're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. Those submarines can launch a nuclear weapon at San Diego or Washington, D.C., and
Right.
that weapon will hit within 10 minutes.
Easily.
You won't have time to even gather up a bottle of water to go to the basement,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a basement,
Right.
before your city is wiped out. And I
Right.
think that somehow Americans think that a limited nuclear war, well, that won't affect us. We don't have to worry about that. Are you kidding? How stupid can you be?
Yep.
So,
That's the reality. Well, thank you so much again, Tom, for your insight and for your courage. Thank you so. I really appreciate it. I really
well,
appreciate it.
thank you
So
very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
sure. So maybe let's um end up our program a word by Charles Dickens. This is the best time. This is the worst time. This is our time.
Yep, he was right.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate our audience for your kind support and kind words. We love you.
Well,
All right.
thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So I'll talk to you next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care in the meantime.